The plane was falling, and the captain was screaming for help. A loud explosion shook the sky. Passengers were thrown forward in their seats. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. Children cried. Adults prayed. Fear filled every corner of the cabin. Then the captain's voice came through the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have lost one engine. If there is any fighter pilot on board, please come to the cockpit immediately." People looked at each other in horror. No one moved. No one stood up. In the middle of this chaos, a black woman was still sleeping in seat 22A. Moments earlier, passengers had laughed at her. "She doesn't look important. She's probably just tired from work." Nobody knew her story. Nobody knew she had flown fighter jets through storms and danger. Nobody knew she carried the skills that could save every life on that plane. Suddenly, the plane dropped again. Screams echoed through the cabin. A mother hugged her child. A man shouted, "We're going to die." The woman slowly opened her eyes. She removed her headphones. She looked around and understood everything in 1 second. Then she stood up. "I can help." The cabin went silent. People stared at her. "You?" someone said. "This is not a joke," another shouted. She looked straight ahead and repeated, "I'm a former fighter pilot." The same people who mocked her now stared in fear. The flight attendant called the cockpit. "Captain, a passenger says she's a fighter pilot." A pause. Then the captain replied, "Send her now." As she walked down the aisle, some prayed, some cried, some whispered, "She's our only hope." Behind her, a man who judged her said quietly, "I was wrong." Inside the cockpit, alarm screamed. Outside, hundreds of lives waited. One woman, one chance, one mistake, and everyone would die. Will she save them, or will the plane fall from the sky? Stay till the end, because what happens next will change how you see people forever. Welcome to Heroic Stories Hub, where ordinary people reveal extraordinary courage. Here, you'll witness stories of pain, stories of strength, and moments that restore faith in humanity. Every story has a hero, and every hero has a lesson. Subscribe to Heroic Stories Hub, because the next story might change your life. The plane dropped so fast that every heart in the cabin jumped into throats. A loud bang echoed through the aircraft. Boom! The lights flickered. Overhead luggage bins rattled violently. A woman screamed. A child burst into tears. The plane shook as if it had been grabbed by something invisible in the sky. Passengers were thrown forward in their seats. Coffee slipped onto the floor. Phones slipped from hands. Panic everywhere. "What was that?" a man shouted. Another cried, "We're going down!" Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling with a sharp sound. The cabin filled with gasps and prayers. In seat 22A, a black woman named Maya slept peacefully against the window. Her hoodie was pulled over her head and her arms were crossed tightly. She looked completely unaware of the fear exploding around her. Earlier, when she boarded the plane, no one noticed her. She had walked in quietly, carrying only a small backpack. Her shoes were old, her face looked tired, her eyes were heavy from lack of sleep. Two men behind her had whispered, "She doesn't look like she belongs in business class. Probably got upgraded by mistake." A woman across the aisle had looked at Maya and turned away. No one knew that Maya had spent 12 years flying fighter jets through storms, war zones, and emergencies. Now the plane shook again. Boom! The sound was louder this time. The nose of the aircraft dipped suddenly. People screamed. A flight attendant fell against a seat. "Everybody stay seated," she shouted. A man clutched his chest. "We're going to die," another cried. Maya's head hit the window lightly. Her eyes opened slowly. "What's happening?" she whispered. She looked around. People were crying. Some were praying loudly. Some were frozen in fear. Suddenly, the captain's voice came through the speaker system. "Ladies and gentlemen," the cabin fell silent. "We have experienced a serious engine failure." A woman covered her mouth. A man whispered, "Oh God." "We are working to control the aircraft, but we may need assistance." Everyone held their breath. "If there is any fighter pilot or military flight expert on board, please make yourself known immediately." Gasps filled the cabin. A baby cried louder. Someone shouted, "Is this real?" Maya's eyes sharpened. Her body straightened. Her breathing slowed. She stood up slowly from her seat. The man beside her grabbed her arm. "Sit down, are you crazy?" Maya gently removed his hand. "I can help." The aisle went quiet. Every head turned toward her. A man laughed nervously. "You?" Another said, "This is not the time for jokes." The two men who had mocked her earlier stared in shock. "Her?" one whispered. The flight attendant rushed over. "Ma'am, please sit down. This is dangerous." Maya looked at her calmly. "I'm a former fighter pilot, United States Air Force, 12 years. The flight attendant froze. A man scoffed. "She doesn't look like one." Maya turned slowly. "Neither does fear." The plane shook again violently. The flight attendant grabbed a seat. "Captain, there's a passenger claiming she's a fighter pilot." There was a long pause. Then the speaker crackled. "Send her to the cockpit, now." The flight attendant looked at Maya. "This way." Maya stepped into the aisle. Passengers stared as she walked forward. Some whispered prayers. Some stared with doubt. Some cried openly. The man who mocked her earlier grabbed his seat. "If she fails, we're dead." Maya walked steadily, holding on to seatbacks as the plane shook. A child looked up to her. "Are you going to save us?" Maya bent slightly. "I'll try." She reached the cockpit door. A flight attendant knocked hard. The door opened. Inside, alarms were screaming. Lights were flashing red and yellow. The captain's face was pale. "Are you the fighter pilot?" he asked. "I'm yes. Can you help us?" Maya took a deep breath. "I didn't wake up today to let anyone die." She stepped inside. The door closed behind her. Outside in the cabin, the passengers waited in terrified silence. The same woman who had ignored Maya earlier whispered, "God, I judged her." The two men who mocked her sat frozen. "She was sleeping, and now she's our only hope." A mother hugged her child tightly. The plane shook again, but this time something felt different. Hope had entered the cockpit, and for the first time since the explosion, fear began to fight with faith. The cockpit door closed behind Maya with a heavy click. Inside, chaos ruled the air. Warning alarms screamed from every direction. Red and orange lights flashed across the control panels. The plane shook like a wounded animal struggling to stay in the sky. The captain's hands trembled on the controls. Sweat ran down his face. The co-pilot looked pale, his eyes wide with fear. "We lost engine 2 completely," the co-pilot shouted over the alarms. "And the plane keeps drifting left," the captain cried. Maya took one step forward and placed her backpack on the floor. She looked at the dashboard, reading the instruments quickly. "Altitude?" she asked. 22,000 feet and dropping," the co-pilot replied. Maya sat in the empty seat between them. "Okay, first, slow your breathing," she said. The captain stared at her. "We're running out of time." "Time is useless if your mind is shaking," Maya answered. She placed her hands near the controls but did not touch them yet. "Tell me exactly what still works." The co-pilot swallowed hard. "Engine 1 is unstable. Navigation is glitching. Autopilot failed." Maya nodded. "I've flown planes with no engines before." "How?" "In training and in war." The plane suddenly dipped downward. The cockpit tilted downward. Both pilots grabbed their seats. From the cabin, distant screams echoed through the door. Maya reached for the controls. "Captain, let me guide you." The captain hesitated. "I've been flying for 20 years. And today, you don't have to fly alone." There was a long pause. Then the captain moved slightly aside. "Do it." Maya adjusted the throttle gently. "Reduce speed. Don't fight the plane, work with it." The co-pilot stared. "You're too calm." "I learned that fear makes mistakes." Maya replied. The alarms continued screaming, but the shaking slowed just a little. Maya studied the navigation screen. There's an airport about 40 miles ahead, she said. But we may not reach it, the co-pilot whispered. We will. Suddenly, turbulence hit hard. The cockpit shook violently. The captain cried out, "Hold steady, do not overcorrect." Her eyes stayed locked on the instruments. Her mind flashed back to years ago. A dark sky, a burning engine, her instructor shouting through the radio, "You lose control only when you panic." Maya blinked and returned to the present. "Angle the nose up by 3 degrees. She ordered. The co-pilot obeyed. The plane leveled slightly. The captain let out a shaky breath. "It's working," he whispered. In the cabin, passengers felt the change. A woman wiped her tears. A man whispered, "We're still flying." Back in the cockpit, Maya checked the fuel system. "Fuel pressure is dropping. We must glide, not push." "But we're heavy," the co-pilot said. "Then we lighten the stress on the plane." She adjusted the flaps carefully. The alarms softened. Not silent, but weaker. The captain looked at her with wide eyes. "Who are you?" Maya didn't look away from the controls. Someone who learned to survive the sky. Another violent shake hit. The plane dropped suddenly. The captain shouted, "Eyes forward, trust the numbers." Her hands stayed steady. Her breathing stayed slow. The runway now appeared faintly on the screen. "There," the co-pilot pointed. Maya nodded. "That's our only chance." The captain whispered, "We only get one landing, then we make it perfect." The plane descended slowly. Wind roared around the cockpit. The cabin behind them was silent now. Even the screams had stopped. Everyone was waiting. Maya spoke softly. "Lower landing gear." The co-pilot pulled the lever. The wheels dropped with a loud thud. The captain swallowed hard. "If we miss the runway, we won't." The runway lights grew larger. The ground rushed up fast. The captain's hands shook. Maya placed her hand gently over his. "Stay with me." The plane touched down roughly. A loud screech filled the air. The aircraft bounced once, twice. Passengers screamed in the cabin. The captain yelled, "We're sliding!" Maya pulled the control slightly. "Easy, easy." The plane slowed. The screeching stopped. The engines went quiet. Silence fell over the cockpit. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then the co-pilot laughed through tears. "We did it!" The captain dropped his head back against the seat. "You saved us!" Maya closed her eyes for a moment. "We saved them." Outside, emergency sirens wailed. Inside the cockpit, fear slowly turned into disbelief and then into gratitude. And behind the closed door, hundreds of lives sat frozen in hope, unaware that a woman they had judged had just guided them back to Earth. The aircraft door opened slowly with a loud hiss. Bright emergency lights flooded the cabin. Firefighters and medical teams rushed in from outside. For a moment, nobody moved. Passengers were frozen in their seats, trying to understand one simple truth. They were alive. Then someone began to clap. One clap, then another. Then the entire cabin exploded with applause. People stood up, crying and laughing at the same time. A woman hugged a stranger tightly. A man fell to his knees and prayed. Maya stepped out of the cockpit slowly. Her face looked tired but calm. The moment passengers saw her, the clapping grew louder. "There she is!" someone shouted. "That's the woman who saved us!" A child ran down the aisle and stopped in front of Maya. "Are you a superhero?" he asked softly. Maya knelt down in front of him. "No," she said gently. "I was just awake when everyone needed me." The child hugged her legs tightly. A flight attendant wiped tears from her face. "I didn't believe you at first," she whispered. Maya nodded. "It's okay. Fear makes people blind." One by one, passengers began to approach her. A woman grabbed her hands. "My baby is alive because of you," she cried. Maya squeezed her hands gently. "Your baby is alive because we didn't give up." The captain stepped behind her. His uniform was wrinkled. His eyes were red from tears. "This woman saved this flight," he announced. Everyone clapped again. The same man who had mocked Maya earlier slowly walked forward. His face was pale, his eyes could not meet hers. "I judged you," he said quietly. Maya looked at him calmly. "Yes." He swallowed hard. "I thought you were nothing, just sleeping in a seat." Maya replied, "That's the danger of thinking you know people." Tears rolled down the man's face. "I'm sorry." Maya paused for a moment. Then she said, "Today, your life was saved by someone you ignored." The cabin went silent. Another passenger whispered, "Never judge someone by how they look." Emergency teams guided passengers out of the plane one by one. Outside, cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. Maya shielded her eyes from the brightness. A microphone was pushed toward her. "Ma'am, how did you stay so calm?" a reporter asked. Maya thought for a second. "Because panic has never saved a life," she answered. Another reporter asked, "What do you want people to remember about today?" Maya looked back at the plane. "I want them to remember that heroes don't always look like heroes." Behind her, passengers hugged their families who had been waiting at the airport. A mother held her son tightly. "I thought I lost you," she cried. A husband kissed his wife's forehead again and again. Maya stood slightly away from the crowd. She watched people laugh and cry. Her hands trembled now that the danger was over. For the first time, fear finally reached her heart. She sat down on a nearby step and closed her eyes. Memories rushed back. Years ago, in training, her instructor had said, "The sky doesn't care who you are, only what you can do." She had fought battles in the air. She had landed damaged jets, but today felt different. Today, she had saved people who never believed in her. The captain walked over to her slowly. "You changed something today," he said. Maya looked up. "What?" "How people see each other," he replied. She smiled weakly. "I hope so." The man who had mocked her earlier stood nearby, listening. He whispered to himself, "I will never look at someone the same way again." A little girl tugged Maya's sleeve. "Can I be like you when I grow up?" she asked. Maya knelt down again. "You already are," she said. The girl smiled widely. As the sun began to set behind the airport, the chaos slowly faded. Passengers were taken to a safe area. Blankets were given. Water was passed around. Maya stood alone for a moment, watching the damaged plane from a distance. It looked small now, weak, no longer frightening. She whispered to herself, "We made it." Before leaving, she turned back toward the passengers. Her voice was calm but strong. "Remember this day," she said. "Not because you were afraid, but because you learned something." People listened carefully. "You never know the strength of the person sitting next to you," she continued. "You never know their story until your life depends on it." A man in the crowd said, "Thank you." Another said, "You saved us." Maya shook her head. "We saved each other." She walked away slowly, carrying only her small backpack. No uniform, no medals. Just a woman who had been asleep until the world needed her awake. And every passenger from that flight would remember one truth forever. The woman they doubted, the woman they ignored, was the woman that brought them home alive. Lesson: never judge a person by their appearance. You may be sitting next to courage and not even know it.